let's use this section here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to cut into it just slightly, just enough to expose the xylem. Okay, right here we're just going to cut it back. Okay, and all this peels off. Okay, and you go all the way around. Okay, and you want to make sure you don't go too deep because you're going to remove the ability for it to actually reroot. Okay, right there. And then we're going to do this secondary. Okay. And I kind of leave a little bit of tiny bit of space in between each kind of scraping, because then that gives the ability for it to have more rooting. Now this type of plant, since it's got a latex, you don't want to scrape overly heavy in this area, because the latex will then try to heal itself too quick and then it won't want to root at all. So if you just do little scrapes here and there, like you get it all the way around, then what you want to do is, now we're going to cover this section here with moss. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take, if the moss is dry, you're going to dip it in some water, just enough to coat it, like that. Okay, and then lay the moss out in about the dimension that you're going to wrap it around that piece. Okay, so you're going to wrap it just like this, coating both ends. If you see, we're going to coat just overlapping the upper and the lower section, like that. Okay, and then we're going to squeeze out excess water. So we don't want to have too heavy of water on there. And we're going to take a little bit of plastic wrap, just enough to cover it. We're going to wrap it tightly, but we're going to leave a little bit of the moss exposed. What we'll be able to do with that is then be able to pour water down in here, or even allow the rain to drip into there to keep it moist. Okay, you also need to allow it to be loose enough in the bottom so that you can allow the water to drip out, because it's really important that the water has an exit so you can keep flushing clean water in there. The worst thing that can happen is the water gets stagnant in there and then it rots the whole centerpiece. The last thing that we'll do is we'll actually stick twist ties on the top and the bottom, but loosely. In other words, we're not going to clamp it down like that, but we're just going to have it enough to where it's tight, and then we'll be able to untwist it and check it about every 2 weeks. After about 2 weeks of it sitting like this, you'll want to untwist it and then look inside and see if there are any root growth. If there's no root growth, then what you want to do is to pull the moss off and then replace it with fresh moss. And you want to keep repeating that until you see any kind of root growth, like a node or a slight little white bump on the edge. Sometimes they'll actually have a beginning of a root. You can actually see the possibility for roots right here, as a matter of fact. And you see these little dots right here. Those are where roots can possibly grow out of it. Okay? And they will start to come out of here, and then what they'll eventually do is grow into the moss. The first time that you open this up and you see root growth, never open it up again. You're going to keep it closed, but then allow it to be loosened up a slight amount to where it'll help dry a little bit, and then keep putting some water in there. Check your moss to make sure it's not completely dry. After about 6 weeks altogether, you should have fair enough root growth to where you'll see the roots in the plastic wrap. There's another reason why I always use clear plastic wrap instead of the old traditional style with foil, because you can't actually see the roots come through with the foil there. Once this is accomplished and you see enough root growth here, then you want to slide this up just slightly to above the last node in the tree, and that's where you're actually going to make your incision to cut it off. So you're going to actually sever this from the tree just a little bit above the last node. Then when you pot it, you're going to actually leave about half of the moss that you have and peel it carefully off, and then put it in a perlite, 50-50 perlite growing mix. Just up to the level of where the moss is. Then this will be your brand new plant. Yeah. I also recommend another thing that you do is make sure that you put a stake in the plant once you pot it, because what will happen is that will keep the plant from falling over, or it'll keep the plant from wiggling around. Because if the wind or moving the plant wiggles it around too much, you will break off roots as well. And that's basically air layering 101.
Oh, really?
Okay.